Good evening, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. Okay, my name is Chris O'Malley. I'm a Vice President for Research, Innovation and Engagement at the Institute of Technology here in Sligo. So I'd like to welcome you all here for this event with the Sligo Sustainable Energy Community. Now, climate change is at the top of all of our priority lists, and including the main corporate partners to the Sustainable Energy Community here in Sligo. And those are, apart from ourselves in the IT, we have Sligo County Council, and I welcome the CEO of the council here, Kieran Hayes. We also have Sligo University Hospital and companies Abbott, AbbVie, Arrivo and Plan Energy. So if you like, we're the partners who originally brought this community together, but obviously we have lots of other people have come and joined it. And these are, if you like, self-governing communities. And really, the extent and urgency of the whole issue of climate change is such that I don't think we can really adequately respond to it unless everybody's energies are harnessed in response to it. And this model of sustainable energy community that was originally launched in Lowe about 4 years ago has actually proven to be a very successful model of a bottom-up response to that challenge. Some of us have heard from about 20 years ago, it was fashionable when talking about innovation and change to talk about the triple helix, which was a combination of government, academia and industry. But in fact, what is now, if you like, state of the art is to bring the fourth stakeholder in, which is the citizen. Because unless we actually engage citizens in bringing about effective change, it's going to take a lot longer to achieve. So this is really what is at the essence of a sustainable energy community. And the team here with our contract research unit, who are acting as the technical advisors to a range of SECs, have a lot of experience by this stage, because this model has grown to represent over 300 communities right across the country. And in 70 of those, the team here have been taken on board to provide the technical advice to those communities. So I'd like again, as I say, to welcome you, and I'll hand over to Stevie Donnelly to start the proceedings.
Cheers, Chris. Sorry about the late start, folks, but we'll try and rattle through our slides now. So what we're going to go through this evening, just going to talk a little bit about what Sligo SEC is. Then my colleague Mel is going to talk about the Energy Master Plan that we're currently developing. I'm going to come back and talk about the home upgrade options that are out there, and then Mel's going to talk about the SEAI Grant schemes. Then we've Barry Lowe from Clar ICH, and Clar ICH are running a community grant project in 2020, and they're seeking expressions of interest tonight. Barry also has two of his colleagues with them if you've questions about if you're doing some home renovations or anything like that and you're looking at grants. Then we also have Barry O'Flynn from Sligo Credit Union, who's going to talk about some home upgrade loans, and then we're going to have some questions and answers after. I should mention as well, Jean is here from AIB to promote the green mortgages that AIB have on offer. Okay, so Sligo SEC is a collaboration amongst sort of the corporate entities in Sligo, or some of them, which includes Abbott, IT Sligo, Sligo County Council, AbbVie, HSE Northwest, Arrivo and Plan Energy. And it was really Plan Energy and IT Sligo Contract Research Unit that began Sligo SEC. So we have a charter in place. Our vision is to provide a leading role in the region for sustainability, health and learning. And we're going to do this by promoting sustainability and energy efficiency, supporting reductions in CO2 in premises, taking a full regional approach and working with cross-border partners, increasing academic collaboration, and then also looking at energy contracting. So we formed in 2016 with an initial focus on knowledge sharing, and that eventually led to some projects, including LED lighting. We've changed lots of lights here in the college to LED lighting, as have some of our partners. We've got 6 EV charge points now in the college, and AbbVie also have a number. AbbVie have also installed some solar PV. Some of our members have done heating upgrades. We're also running staff awareness campaigns, and we also have the energy credit value of these projects have meant that we're able to offer free of charge energy upgrades to local charity buildings. And what that means is basically we've installed LED lighting in Sligo Cancer Support Centre free of charge to Sligo Cancer Support Centre. So some of the projects we're involved in, we're involved with an SEAI funded energy master plan, so that's kind of why we're here tonight. So that's involving baseline analysis of energy consumption across homes, businesses and transport. So we're burning our way through 25 grand to do that. Another project that Sligo SEC is looking at is Sligo Local Gas Network. So we've secured €80,000 from Gas Networks Ireland to look at the viability of a satellite gas network in Sligo town, supplied by biogas from anaerobic digestion, biogas from farms in the locality. So that's something that's ongoing currently. Also, my colleague Mel is working with Sligo County Council on the Cranmore Regeneration Project. And that work has led to securing an additional €90,000 of energy credit value. So that's going to help promote or enhance the next couple of phases of the the Cranmore Regen project. Finally, another project that we're looking at is developing a Northwest Energy Agency to act as a focal point for community energy action and project delivery. So hopefully we can get that off the ground, and this just gives you an idea what Sligo SEC is currently working on. Okay, so I'm going to pass over to my colleague Mel now, and he's going to talk about the Energy Master Plan for Sligo. Cheers, Mel.
Okay, the Energy Master Plan is a part of the programme of Sustainable Energy Communities. So every Sustainable Energy Community can apply for funding to carry out an Energy Master Plan. It's, as I said, it's funded by SEAI, and it's to help us get an understanding of where and how we're using energy at the moment, and identifying opportunities for a more sustainable future. The mantra that's been used at the moment is very similar to reduce, reuse, recycle that we think of in waste. It's use less energy, use clean energy, and be smarter about how we're using our energy. The Energy Master Plan consists of a few elements. So one is a baseline of how much energy we're using and how we're using it right at the moment. We also try and include an assessment of renewable energy resources in the area. And this leads us to this term that's used, the Register of Opportunities, which is a project list that we're trying to start to kick off tonight to move into 2020 and beyond. In our Energy Master Plan, we had included some elements there for the SEC members in the orange box, and that's some case studies of completed projects. This is something we'd like to share across the network and maybe give other people ideas of what they could do with their businesses. We've included some energy audits in the SME sector and in the community sector as well. And then the residential sector is the one we're focusing on tonight, not excluding the others, but that's the one we're talking about mostly. So we looked at the existing census data, the local authority data. We did some BER assessments and direct assessments of homes and came up with a list of recommendations for those homes. And Stevie's going to talk about those a little bit later on. And we're hoping to work this into a multi-annual work plan for 2020 to 2030. So just to give you some background on that, that's the area we're looking at there. So it's largely the old Sligo Borough, the circle, and we included a few of the other areas in there. These are statistical areas called small areas in the census. That's our population there, just over 19,000. 9,500 homes and 7,000 cars, give or take. This is the age of our homes in that area, and you can see the construction booms that we've had in the 1970s, then in the 1990s, and the bigger boom that we all know of that ended abruptly in 2008, and then 2011 or later, very, very little. And the last one is just people who weren't sure or didn't state when their homes were built. But we can see there that 70% of homes in the area there we're talking about are in the 20th century. And still 42% older than 1980 and another 20% older than 1960. This just gives you an idea of the percentage of homes that are pre-1960. So the darker areas are the areas of older housing in the town. It's not to say that there aren't older ones in the other areas, but they may have been redeveloped. Some of those areas in the town may have been redeveloped post-1960. Now, not a big shock. This is how we use oil, how we heat our homes predominantly, mostly oil heating. But in Sligo, we do have an appetite for coal, which is not a great thing. It's not a very efficient. It's not very healthy. But we do use quite a lot of it. The electric heating is mostly going to be in apartments where you don't have a wet plumbed heating system and you've got storage heaters or something like that. So you can see there, again, the darker areas are where we're using most coal. And it would typically be in lower income areas. And the reason for that is it's just simpler if you're not on a major income to buy a bag of coal for a week or 2 weeks rather than trying to get a fill of oil that might cost you, 300 euros for a half fill or maybe 700 euros for a full fill. Now, this is our BER data. And again, the colour scheme here, red is bad, green is good. So you can see the areas of existing BER data. What I will say about that is that would be an optimistic representation of Sligo. These are the published BERs. We only really get BERs when you're selling a home or renting a home. So this is of the published BERs, this is typically what we have in those areas. So you can see that, D1s, Es and Fs are quite predominant. It's likely that the other ones that don't have BERs are worse than this. So this is probably optimistic. Now the economic impact of this that we've identified in the Energy Master Plan is, a combination there of almost 30 million leaving that area, and most of that, the majority of that, leaves the local economy. Nearly all of it leaves the national economy. So anything we do to improve that or reduce the amount of energy we're using, the amount of energy we're wasting, we can try and keep that in the local economy. So that's the economic impact. So for BERs, just to put that in context, there's two examples here. So your top example there is a 3-bed semi, 100 metres squared, or a 200 metre squared detached house. You can see that going from a D to a B rating in your 3-bed semi, it's going to save you approximately €1,000 a year. Now that's also a little optimistic because BERs assume that we keep our homes as warm as they should be to be comfortable. When we're in cold homes, we tend to be in cold homes and we don't heat them that much. And that's what happens. So what we want to do for Sligo homes is to make them warmer and more comfortable. And that's so that if we can insulate them, keep them airtight, put in efficient heating systems, we will actually heat them to the comfort level they should be at. They should be then cheaper to run, more valuable on the market when that becomes more and more important. Definitely healthier, especially if we can get away from solid fuels and open fires. And we want to promote a community-wide participation. Okay, I'll hand you over to Stevie now, who's going to talk about some of those home upgrade options that have been identified in the Energy Master Plan.
Okay, so as part of the Energy Master Plan, we hired ORS Energy Consultants to carry out some of the Energy Master Plan, and they've performed 30 home energy audits in and around Sligo town. There's a few there in Leitrim, so some people live in Leitrim and commute to Sligo town. So you can see there, we had 30 homes, and the different colours there represent the BERs that they are. The first 15 on the list are in estates. I've obviously taken out the numbers so that you can't identify them. So if you live in one of those estates, and if you can read that writing, talk to us afterwards and we can give you a report on a type of home in that estate. Obviously they're all different because people do upgrades at different times. Then the ones on the bottom are homes, one-off homes in the middle of the countryside basically. Okay, so from the BERs we've identified some detailed recommendations that you can bring your home up to an A3 in stages through low, medium and high level measures. So this is kind of a list of the different types of upgrades and whether they're low, medium or high. So low level upgrades include changing out your lights for LED lighting in the home, attic insulation, sealing your chimney opes, and installing better quality wall vents to improve overall dwelling air tightness. I've put an asterisk there because a major problem that has existed in the past is people blocking up vents in their home, and actually their home becomes too airtight, and you can have major problems with that. The envelope of your home has to be able to breathe, so don't come away from here thinking you should just block up all the vents in your home. It just has to be done in the right way. Medium level upgrades then include solar thermal panels, window and door upgrades, heating controls, pumping your cavity walls, and upgrading secondary heat sources such as living room stoves. And then high level upgrades, that's where you get into upgrading your low efficiency boilers with high efficiency heating systems, putting in heat pumps, installing photovoltaics and battery storage, and then heat recovery and ventilation, and then also external wall insulation, which is sometimes known as the wrap. So here's an example of one of the homes. This is a house on Larkhill Road in Sligo Town, and obviously you can't see that on the next slide. I'll go into the detail, but just to give you an idea, it's kind of a one-pager to give to a homeowner, and this is a valuable piece of information. If you live in one of those estates, you can, because most of the houses in the estate are pretty similar, so you're able to give a one-pager to a homeowner to see what are the different measures they can do to upgrade the BER in their home. So, as I said, that's a home on Larkhill, built in the 1960s, and currently it has a BER-G, so a very, very low, inefficient home. So it's a two-storey semi-detached dwelling. It has a low-efficiency oil boiler, suspended ground floor, pitched and flat roofs with varying levels of insulation, double glazed windows. So that would represent a lot of homes around Sligo. Some low-level measures then would cost about €580. Draft stripping of windows and doors, and installing LED lights, and also some insulation in the attic or in the roof. Then if you were to take it a step further to medium level upgrades and spend approximately €9,000, you get a new high efficiency oil boiler with a 3-channel programmer, a new hot water cylinder, and then internally dry line the house. Okay, and that will bring your home up to a C1. And then high level upgrades, which cost a measly €31,500. You can look at replacing the windows and doors. You might ask there, this house already has double glazed windows, but they may have been installed a long time ago, so you still sometimes have to go back and change them for triple glazing or some types of double glazing. So yeah, in that house, the high level measures, you look at floor insulation as well, mechanically ventilated heat recovery system, air tightness works, and then also solar PV. So they're all the measures you would require to bring that home up to an A3. Next up is a house in Heatherview. Again, that's the sort of the one-page report, and what it's telling you is, yeah, a home in Heatherview built in 1976, currently has a BER of E1. Again, it's a 2-storey semi-detached dwelling, low efficiency oil boiler. So some of the low-level measures that you would have there for about €2,600: LED lighting, draft stripping, pumping the external cavity wall with beads. And if you did that, you would bring that home from an E1 up to a C3. And then medium level upgrades are there also to bring the home up to a B2. And again, high level upgrades of €22,000 to bring the home up to an A3. So it just gives you an idea of the different possibilities that are out there for different homes. And finally, that's another one-off house in Ballymote. It currently is a C2. It was built in 2005, so it would have been built to not a bad building regulation. But again, there you can see it would still cost a lot of money to bring that home up to an A3. It would cost €24,000. Okay. Has anyone any questions on that so far? Okay. Okay, I'm going to let Mel give you the bad news about the carbon tax.
Okay, so I expect most of us have heard a little bit about the carbon tax, certainly in the budget, and if anyone's been paying any attention to the climate action plan, the climate action plan has a target in there to increase the carbon tax from the €20 per tonne that we're currently paying to €80 per tonne over the course of the next decade. So now, at the moment, 1,000 litres of oil will cost you around about $6.90, maybe $700, depending on who's bringing it and how far outside the town you live. Right now, that 1,000 litres of oil has 2.5 tonnes of CO2. Don't worry about that, but that is costing you, in that $6.90, approximately €50. Now, so this graph here just shows that carbon tax at €20 per tonne in 2019. going all the way up to 80 euros per tonne in 2030. The impact on you here is shown depending on how many litres of oil you use a year. Again, not a lot of us think about that much, but if we get a full fill, it's generally 1,000 litres, and a half full fill is your 500 litres. So if you're currently using 1,000 litres of oil a year, over the next 10 years, that carbon tax is going to cost you another 900 euros there. And similarly, if you get more than one full fill, if you're getting 2 full fills, 3 full fills, that cost goes up. So that's something to consider when you think about doing your upgrades. As to how, this is the additional cost of oil just for the carbon tax, not the market price that might go up as well. If you're doing upgrades to your home, this is going to contribute to the payback. It's going to bring that payback down. Okay. There is another element that you need to consider as well with home upgrades that has become relevant now. So it's the new building regulations, the Part L. Some people may have heard of this, that there's a new kind of marker to hit, which is a B or B2. So this has come into effect because the new building regulations now have regulations for major renovations to existing buildings, and this includes home energy upgrades. It's going to be, if it makes the headlines, it will be sensationalized and people think, oh God, this is going to cost me a lot. But this is the breakdown of it, and I have some sheets, if anyone wants to take them away with it, that has a kind of a flow chart to work your way down. Essentially, a major renovation is if you are doing any works to 25% or more of your building envelope. That's your floors, your ground floor, your outside walls, or your roof. Okay? Now, it's a major renovation if it includes external wall insulation or internal wall insulation. So that's the wrap or the dry lining, not cavity wall insulation. That's not considered a major renovation. Is everyone with me so far? Okay. If it consists of a major renovation, then the whole building must be improved to a cost optimal level. And that's the term used in there. So if you're doing external wall insulation or internal wall insulation on all your home, you're going to have to bring the whole building up to a cost optimal level. You can achieve that in 2 ways. The simplest way is if that measure gets you a B or a B2, you're done. That's a cost optimal level. Okay? If it doesn't get you a B or rating of B2, then you have to look at 2 things, your ceiling insulation and your existing heating systems. You need to upgrade your ceiling level insulation to a U factor of 0.16. It's a foot, it's 300 mil of your rock wool insulation. If you have that done already, you're okay in your ceiling insulation. The next thing to look at is your heating systems. If your boiler is a certain age, I think it's 10 years or older and less than 86% efficient, you do need to upgrade your heating system. You can choose whatever upgrade you want to that. You can put in a condensing boiler with an efficiency of 95% or more, or you can go to a heat pump if your house suits a heat pump and if you can afford a heat pump. Okay? Is that relatively clear, or do I sound like John Cleese trying to explain things on the meaning of life? No? Okay, we will take questions again at the end, and I do have a sheet on that as well. Now, so we've talked through Sligo SEC, the Energy Master Plan, some elements to consider if you're doing a home upgrade. So this is then the carrot, so the SEAI grant schemes as they currently stand. Now, most people will be aware that there's a number of grant schemes. They're not all that easy to navigate, quite confusing. They have different time frames, different types of grants, and they can change from one year to the next. So we're going to talk through the 3 main options for homeowners. Okay. The first option there is the Warmer Home Scheme, and this is for free upgrades for eligible homeowners. I'll go through some more details on each of these in a moment. That's if you're considered in energy poverty, and I'll explain that as I go through it. You're entitled to some free upgrades to bring your home to a warmer standard. The next one is Better Energy Homes, and that's if you just want to go and get 1 or 2 measures done yourself, and you can apply for a fixed grant, and I'll explain those as well in a minute. And the final one is this Community Energy Grant. It used to be called Better Energy Communities, or BEC, and a lot of people still call it that. And that's one of the reasons we're bringing you here tonight, and we're going to have I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and then I'm going to hand you over to some project coordinators who are doing work on that. So the first one, the Warmer Home Scheme. So this is the free upgrades for energy poor homeowners. Energy poverty is to do with spending a certain amount of your disposable income on trying to heat your home. And in Ireland, you qualify as energy poor if you're in receipt of any one of those social welfare payments. So if you're not, consider people in your family or friends who might be and make them aware of this. Particularly the last two, because they appeared in the last couple of years. It's to take account of essentially the value that carers give to society in keeping people out of hospitals and care homes and saving the health service a fortune. But they can't then earn much money and keep their homes warm very easily. So again, if you know anyone in those categories, make them aware of this, please. The kind of things that are on offer, essentially SEAI will send out an assessor and do a direct assessment on the home, and you can see the kind of things that are on offer there. Some of them are subject to survey, so things like windows and heating upgrades, they will be subject to that assessor coming out and saying, yes, this is badly needed on this home. What I will say as a caveat on this, and SEAI have told me this, there's quite a waiting list in this scheme at the moment. It's approximately 12 months, so you do need to have patience, and that's not very satisfying, I know, but that's the reality of it. So the next one, if you're not in energy poverty and you have to pay for things yourself, this is the single measure. So there's a menu of measures available. The first sort of greeny blue ones are all to do with insulation. Then the yellow ones are heating systems. And then we have a BER in there, and then the solar PV or the solar electricity is the last one. So this is for all homeowners and landlords in homes built before 2006. So you can see there, you get a fixed grant rate. Regardless of how much it costs you, you're going to get that fixed grant amount. The only adjustments they do are based on the type or size of your house. So apartments and mid-terrace get a smaller amount. Semi-detached or end-of-terrace get slightly larger, and detached get another larger one if you're doing the internal one or the external one, the external insulation. The heating systems, there is still a grant for heating controls upgrade. There aren't any grants at the moment for any fossil fuel boilers. So going from an old oil boiler or an old gas boiler to a condensing one, it is going to be more efficient, but there aren't any grants for that from SEAI at right now. I don't think there will be. There is obviously the heat pump grants, and they have, the house can be slightly newer, I think it's up to 2010, and you're eligible for the heat pump grants, similar for the solar PV. So, and solar thermal, just in case anyone doesn't know the difference between solar thermal and solar PV. Solar thermal is the one that heats water, and solar PV is the one that gives you electricity. Now, this is the one we're focusing on tonight. So the Community Energy Grant, it's a cross-sectoral project. We haven't had that much activity in this part of the country, and we're trying to, I suppose, improve on that. So this one gives you a percentage of the eligible costs. So rather than just a fixed grant, it gives you a percentage of the eligible costs, and that tends to give you better value. So for your non-energy poor, you're going to get 35% of the eligible cost of the upgrades. If you're energy poor, you can get 80%. And there's a whole wide range of measures. It's not as restrictive as the other ones, but essentially you're going to be looking at the same kinds of measures in any case. Now, the things that aren't grant supported are, as I said, gas and oil boilers, not grant supported. It's not to say you can't include them in the works, but you're not going to get any grant for that element of the works. And back boilers. So you can still get a grant, at least you could this year, and hopefully next year, you can still get a grant to put a stove into an open fireplace, but not a stove with a back boiler. Okay, now, something to be aware of for that scheme is you can't do partial solutions. That means if you're insulating your walls, you need to insulate all your walls. You're not going to get into one of those projects with a single measure. So if all you can afford right now is a single measure, you need to go back to those better energy home grants and have a look at those. Because of those building regulations that have come in, SEAI now have a marker on this project that they want to see BERs of B2. So again, if the measures that you can afford, even with the grant, are not going to get you to a B2 or a C1 with prior agreement, then it's not right for you either. Okay, so it is a significant investment, and the works have to be completed by mid-October. That tends to be not your problem. That tends to be a project coordinator's problem, but it can cause issues. Now, how do you get involved in one of these? Individual homeowners can't apply to this, so that's why you need to have a project coordinator or some kind of an umbrella organisation that is grouping homes together. But the advantages are this percentage of cost versus the fixed grant measure. It's likely to give you better value. There's also likely to be some economies of scale for that project. And the project coordinator tends to look after dealing with contractors, dealing with SEAI as well, and dealing with the grant schemes. Okay, so that actually brings us now to our guest speakers here. We're with Clar ICH. They are used to running projects as project coordinators like this all the time. So I'm going to ask Barry Lowe to step up and talk about that. Thank you, Barry.
Which one do I forward, Mel? Is it the down arrow?
Down there,
This one?
yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mel, and thank you folks here at Sligo IT for organising this. As Mel said, my name is Barry. I work for Clar IRD, and we are lead applicants for these BEC projects. We've been carrying them out the last number of years, and we pull all the different agencies together. Like Mel said, the local authorities, the private business, like for example, local authority this year was Mayo County Council. Private business, an example would be Harmac Medical in Castlereagh. Community group would be the likes of Castlebar Social Services, and a number of domestic homes. Now, some of my slides, Mel has already covered some of the information, so I'm going to flick through them quickly here. I'm going to cover here service delivery, heat loss and ventilation, fuel poverty, which Mel has already covered, and the better energy communities. Clar ICH is a voluntary housing association and coordinates management and delivery of the retrofit programme on behalf of SEAI. Local partnerships consist of Clar ICH, EcoSmart, who are our project coordinators and who are represented here this evening by Pat and John. We apply for funding on behalf of local authorities, community groups, domestic householders, social housing schemes, retailers, and commercial buildings. Clar ICH coordinates and provides mentoring support to fuel poor homeowners, communities, and that then stimulates local supply chain by engaging local subcontractors. We also cash carry the projects, which means that we fund it. We organise bridging funding through. Pat, can you think of the organisation that Clan are like a community bank. So if there's an organisation that wants to do the work, if they don't have the money up front that they have to contribute, Clan Creeder will fill that gap, and we will wait for our money. The next one is again delivery of the better and warmer homes. That's stuff that Mel has covered already. This is actually a slide on where you actually lose the heat in your home. 25% goes through your roof, 15% through your windows, 15% through lack of drafts on we said the likes of the letterbox doors around that, 50% through the floors, and 35% through the walls. This, of course, isn't defined science, but that's just a general idea. Fuel poverty criteria, Mel has already covered that very well, and if there are any questions on that, we can talk about it after. The Better Energy Community Programs, which is really what we're here to speak about today. It assists energy efficiency community projects through capital funding, partnership, and technical support. Partner with utility companies, community facilities, local authorities, domestic fuel and non-fuel, domestic fuel poor and non-fuel poor. That's a term that they use for the different categories. The available funding again, which is the important thing, I guess. Private fuel poor can get up to 80% funding for the projects. Non-fuel poor can get up to 35% funding. Local authority homes up to 30% funding, and housing associations up to 50% funding. Then for the non-residential, some of you might be here representing community groups tonight. For the non-residential, there's up to 50% for our community groups, which we do quite a bit of. Private and public sector up to 30%, and then public sector exemplar 30 to 50%. In conclusion, what we try and do as an organisation is to identify households. We're very much on the ground. We're the ones that go and survey the home in the first place, and we follow the project right through to conclusion. So we're the first person to meet the client, and we're the last person that are there when the contractors are finished and we sign off on the project. We're locally based, and we really do encourage, especially when it comes to plumbing and electrics, to use local contractors if at all possible, because there's not much sense in bringing somebody in, and if there's a problem in a couple of months' time that they can't get a hold of the plumber, they can't get a hold of the electrician. We had a very funny story of a plumber recently that he went to do a job after the contractor left. The contractor was from Northern Ireland. He brought Northern Ireland plumbing with him. It was metric size. The plumber figured that he'd fix the problem live, absolutely sure that it was the same size. And when he put them together, because it was Northern Ireland copper, it didn't work for him. It's just an example of one of the problems that can arise when you don't use your local contractors. Addressing fuel poverty is obviously one of the very important issues on the SEAI scheme. Generate local employment, I've already talked about that. Stimulate the local supply chain, and innovative finance. That's covered already in the Clan Credo. They're a very good organisation for organising finance. There's a picture. People often ask us about what the heat pump look like. Heat pumps are a huge part of what we're doing at the minute. As Mel says, oil boilers are no longer upgraded, are no longer funded. You actually can do a heating controls upgrade in your home if you purchase your own oil or gas boiler. That's a way around some of the rules. Some people like the idea of an SEAI ourselves. We don't encourage that. But that's an idea of what a heat pump looks like. That's an idea of what the unit in your hot press looks like. It's almost like a refrigerator. That's the control panel on the heat pump. This is before an external job starts, and this is during the process of the external installation, and that shows the end result. That's what Mel referred to before as the wrap. So I just go back over it again. That's before, this is during, and this is after. And there's another example of a home here in town actually, and the boys working on it before, during, and after. So we'll be around for a little while after, like Pat and John, my colleagues from Microsmart, who are the project coordinators, will also be here to answer questions after. So thank you for your time.
Okay, so again, if you think you're in a position to act on that next year, I'd encourage you to talk to Clar tonight and maybe sign up with them. But you need to be fairly sure that you're in a position. So we've taken you through a number of things, including the grant schemes. There's always going to leave you with some money to spend yourself, and that's why we've asked Credit Union here tonight to talk about it. We also have representatives here from AIB as well tonight. Everyone has their own preferences of their own finance partner. So Barry O'Flynn here is going to talk about the Sligo Credit Union schemes.
Thanks, Matt. I won't go through this in too much detail, but that's just our background of what we do. To put it in context, we've lent about €20 million into Sligo town last year, and that money stays in Sligo. It's money that has been saved in Sligo and spent in Sligo and sustains jobs, improves houses, educates children, all the things that families like to do. We exist for one purpose, and that's to serve our members and communities, and not to profit from their needs. And what we do, I suppose, allows us to support communities. Our part of what we do is to try and support the community in any way we can. The top left is some of our original. Anybody that's in Sligo a long time will recognise some faces in there. Pascal Morrison is there, Tommy Casey, Bertie Donaghy, Sean McManus. My first school teacher is on in the front left, Mrs. Giffney from Castle Street, our new building in Castle in Wine Street that we hope to move into in March or in May this year. When Steve and Mel asked me, what do we do and how can we finance and what can we help? We do home improvement loans at 6.9% for amounts over 25,000. From listening to the scheme and I suppose the benefits in the community aspect of it in particular, we're quite happy to do any of our home improvement loans for amounts under 25,000 for the same rate. And if they comply with the grant conditions that Barry just outlined and Mel and Stevie, we're happy to do them at that rate. And that's unsecured. There are no additional fees or charges within that. Those loans can be cleared quicker. I'll show you some tables on the duration and what it would cost to borrow X or Y over a number of years. And but our loans can be cleared without penalty, and most people would do that. If people aren't members of the credit union, they can join and apply for a loan. There's no restriction on that. We've joined people on a Monday and they borrow from us on a Wednesday. All loans are subject to standard affordability, no more than you'd expect. And we do things like we insure loans against death at no cost. So those things are an advantage when somebody is borrowing. And whether that amount is 3,000 or 30,000, it makes no difference to us. We'll give the same rate for all. That's to put it in some context, I suppose. And I've looked at 5, 10, 15 and 30,000. We upgraded our house. Our house is about 20 years old. I consider it a new house. But we spent about 3,000 or 4,000 on upgrading it a couple of years ago. It's the best money we ever spent. And I'm kind of sorry at this stage we didn't do more. But if you're looking at €5,000 monthly over 3 years, it's €154. It's €100 over 5 years. And some of the more serious upgrades that the lads were talking about earlier on, if you're looking at, I suppose, a chunkier upgrade at 10 or 15,000, really depends on how long people would like to pay it back. But it is possible at 15,000, at 300 a month. It's not extraordinary money. And if you look at the paybacks that the lads outlined there in terms of getting a high rating and what the savings will be, and you stick it on a spreadsheet, it is payable over it. There is a return to any family over a relatively modest period of time. And I won't go into the 30,000 ones, but those loans make sense. Our only interest is lending to things that improves people's lives, and this certainly does. The process, call us, walk into us, apply online, give us a buzz. Typically it's the same as any other loan. We look at financial history. We turn our loans around within 3 to 4 days, so there's not a big waiting period involved. I think from anything that we did these schemes about 6-7 years ago, and they became quite complicated, and we were looking for grant confirmations and all that. And what we're really trying to do this time is just cut down on the paperwork. If the community scheme that cuts down on the paperwork from individual applicants takes that type of paid out of it, if there is a confirmation, we'll certainly make those rates available. And if we can help in any way from anybody that would like more information, please give us a shout. And I'll be around the same as Barry afterwards for a few minutes. So Chairman is here as well, Peter Smith. So thank you.